Deep Space Food Challenge, sponsored by NASA and the Canadian Space Agency. Good food for everyone on Earth and beyond.
This is Nelson Martin. I'm the team leader for Manna for Heaven, talking about sustainable space farming for the Deep Space Food Challenge. 5 food system essentials. So we're all familiar with the prayer, give us our daily bread. And so God is a necessary element in any food system. Second, every food system needs a caretaker. As a 10th generation farmer, I'm well aware of this. And the single best thing a human can do for his health is to grow his own food. Third, every food system needs animals. In our Deep Space Food Challenge presentation, we use birds. Birds are important because they're easily trained as pets and they don't urinate. Plants are important for food for the animals and for the humans. And we'll expand more on plants later, as well as expanding on microbes.
There are 6 principles, as we envision it, for food production in space. And those principles are the first, that the soils must be living soils. They must contain a diversity of microbes that can be utilized by plants for their growth and biomass production and development. Another principle is that plants should be selected for their functionality and for their economy. This is the 3 sisters indigenous agriculture concept. And a third principle is that disease control will be done not with inhibitors, microbial inhibitors like fungicides and antibiotics, but instead with microbes that actually don't kill the pathogenic fungi, but instead they reduce their growth, and they will make them so that they're avirulent and non-pathogenic to the plant. So bacteria are actually antifungal or fungal control bacteria are preferential for use rather than antibiotics. Also, crop wastes should be recycled through 2 processes, either through the use as food for mushroom production and also through composting. And so different units in the system should compost and be used for production of mushrooms. Animal wastes should be used as fertilizers in the system, and they should be used to recycle nutrients in the system. And finally, microbes in foods should be retained, if at all possible, with minimal cooking if possible, or at least some foods should be eaten without cooking, so that the humans in the system can acquire microbes from the plants. And this is now normally how people will acquire microbes, from eating these plants that have their symbiotic microbes in them. Why are plants important to humans? And why are they important to be part of this space food system? It's because they provide oxygen for people to breathe, food for people to consume. They can be used to make clothing, fiber production. They can be used for shelter. They can be used for medicine. They can be sources of medicines. because they are beautiful and they can be growing in the space craft and provide beauty and actually make people relax. And because they provide services to humans such as nitrogen fixation, they will cultivate microbes that fix nitrogen that they can then acquire that nitrogen and produce proteins that they can feed humans. So they really are critical in any space food system. Plants require living soils in order to grow and thrive. That is, living soils are soils that contain a diversity of microbes. And without those microbes in the soils and going into the plants, plants don't grow very well. They become very weak, susceptible to disease, and they don't acquire nutrients well. There are chemical interactions that happen between the plants and the microbes. And actually this chemical formula here, the chemical reactions are happening inside plant cells when microbes actually are internalized into those root cells. And one of the first interactions is these microbes are secreting plant hormones. The plant hormone in specific is ethylene, and that causes root cells to grow. And then you have growth, and in some cases you have later on you have cell division and so forth. Okay, this is the second interaction that happens inside roots between microbes and root cells. And these microbes are secreting antioxidant forms of nitrogen. Nitric oxide is one of these forms, and that actually will combine with superoxide and result in nitrate. Nitrate is a form of nitrogen, a fertilizer that plants can absorb. So these interactions with microbes are important for obtaining nutrients for the plant. Bacteria going into plants will deliver nutrients to plants. One way is through this nitrogen fixation pathway, and these microbes are fed by the plant through the process of photosynthesis. So plants do photosynthesis, they acquire nitrogen, they acquire actually carbon in the form of sugars, which initially was in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, which then gets fixed into sugars, and then they can provide that to feed these microbes and fuel the process of actually nitrogen fixation, forming nitrogen inside by the microbes inside the roots. And then the plants can then obtain that nitrogen from those microbes. So this is a symbiotic interaction. This image shows a root, and it's a branch root coming off of a grass plant, actually. And you can see this blue cloud around the root tip, actually. Those are microbes. These plants will attract microbes from the soil to the root, and then they will internalize those microbes into the root. And then what they will do is they will secrete superoxide onto those microbes and extract nutrients from those microbes. The process that I'm going to talk about very briefly here is one called the rhizophagy cycle. Rhizo meaning root, phagy meaning eating, and this is the root eating cycle in which roots will attract bacteria to roots, internalize them, and extract nutrients from them, and then put surviving microbes back out into the soil. Okay, this is actually an image of two plants over to the rice plants. The one to the left has microbes in it. You can see these rice seedlings are very large. They grew large. And over here, without the microbes, where we removed all the microbes, you can see these little baby seedlings. Without these bacteria, plants they remain very small. They really need these bacteria from the soil in order to grow and thrive. Seeds of plants will naturally carry microbes on them. In other words, the mother plant will take the best microbes and will actually put on the seeds. And then those seeds will be there when that seed germinates and the seedling starts to grow. They can go from the seed into the seedling, and then they can function in this rhizophage cycle to provide nutrients to the plant. We plan to take numerous different types of seeds with us in the farming system on space flight. This will be part of it, and those seeds will be treated in such a way to preserve all the microbes on them, because those microbes are important in the growth of those plants. We also propose a type of agriculture pioneered by Native Americans, the Three Sisters agriculture. And the crops, specific crops, can vary. For example, a corn or a dwarf type corn, perhaps a bean, pole bean, and squash, or alternatives. Various alternatives can be substituted in those Three Sisters agriculture. The point is that these plants will grow together. They'll optimize economize space, and also be the most productive combinations that you could have in this agricultural system. So it's a variation of Three Sisters agriculture. We also intend or propose that fungi that degrade plant waste should also be used. And for example, oyster mushrooms could be used to degrade the dead plant leaves and stems of the plant in order to gain extra nutrients from that material. And these fungi, oyster mushrooms, will grow easily on the plant remains. They'll produce additional mushrooms, biomass food material that people can eat. But then also will be rich in B12 and other vitamins that are produced on the mushroom, but may not be produced in other kinds of food sources. Our intention is to manage the crops, manage the plants, using microbes rather than using antibiotics or fungicides. And for example, one can use microbes, bacteria, to control fungal diseases. This can be done on Earth, in farming systems, but especially in space, because what happens if you were to use fungicides or antibiotics in the system, you cause a dysbiosis. And that dysbiosis would result in actually more disease in the system. And so we propose using biological control bacteria on the flight for all disease control in the plants.
Microbes are important in the human gut. Without the positive input of microbes, the human gut will contain an improper balance of microorganisms, which greatly impairs digestion and absorption of nutrients. Mental health is also affected by the gut microbiome. Team Bios. Nelson Martin is our team leader and director. He's a Mennonite grazing farmer and food system expert. James White, PhD, is our team scientist and presenter. He's in plant biology and microbe specialist, professor in the Department of Plant Biology at Rutgers University. Recently, Dr. White and collaborators have been examining the roles of intracellular bacteria and fungi in modulation of development and nutrient acquisition in plants. Bradley David Good is team presentation coordinator, video and animation producer. He's a health YouTuber and author with interest in microbiomes from the soil to the human gut. He's a creative solution tech expert currently employed with the Federal Reserve System. And now our official team report. Introduction. When you eat the fruit of the labor of your hands, you will be happy, and it will go well for you. Psalm 128:2. It is self-evident that humans and all sentient beings require sustenance from the Creator of the universe. That sustenance comes in the form of spiritual as well as physical support. Physically, humans require plants to provide nutrients for energy and health maintenance. When humans grow their own foods, they acquire satisfaction, health, and a feeling of productivity in the process. Every sustainable food system requires diversity of plants, microbes, animals, and creativity to modify the food system, such as adding different plants or microbes, or disease diagnosis and control. For all of these, we recognize the Creator for the gifts of life, predictable chemistry and biology, solar energy, and for human intelligence and creativity. It is only through the application of all these gifts that humans will be able to travel to distant planets and star systems. Full cycle deep space food plan summary. Space farming. The microbes break down the organic matter, multiplying their own population. They are fed by the root exudates of the plant. The plant absorbs the nutrients and the bacteria. The root grows, the plant grows and gives fruit. The humans eat the plant and feed some of it to the birds. Eggs are laid by the birds for hatching and human food. The birds are the necessary element to provide the micronutrients in a form that the humans need because they can synthesize amino acids that humans cannot. The humans gain these nutrients from eating the eggs. The birds also help break down food waste and start the nutrient cycling. The birds also provide companionship. The human element is necessary based on Genesis, where God told man to dress the garden. Human intervention is necessary for creation to be productive. Human intervention can be adding inoculant to the growing medium or maintaining orientation to the sun for maximum photosynthesis. Sap analysis may need to be done to adjust for micronutrient deficiency in plants. Human intervention would also feed the birds, dispose of their waste, or train the birds to dispose of it. An insect cycle may also be very beneficial for providing diversity of nutrient cycling. The 5 building blocks of a sustainable food system. To be sustainable, a food system must include the Creator, humans, animals, plants, and microbes. Astronauts should work for their own foods because it gives them a relationship with their food and keeps them happier and healthier. It is all about nurturing relationships. Humans. The human is the farmer caretaker of the plants, animals, and microbes. The human is the problem solver and troubleshooter in the system. For example, maximizing productivity, adding or removing a plant or a source of microbes into the system. Animals. Animals would provide animal protein, quail eggs, and companionship. Eggs are a complete food that are easily prepared. Certain essential nutrients can be obtained only from animals. Birds are an ideal choice because they are small and they do not urinate. Crickets would be reared for quail food and as a backup to the eggs. Plants. Plants would help produce oxygen and purify the air of the spacecraft. Natural light will be used, if possible, for photosynthesis. LED lights will be used to supplement natural light. To provide plant foods on the long journey, we would use a modern version of Native American Three Sisters agriculture. We would maximize crop production and minimize space used on the flight by growing amaranth, beans, and high-producing gourds. Amaranth will provide greens and grains, and beans will provide protein, while gourds will provide a high-carbohydrate vegetable. These crops will be a sustainable source of food for humans and birds in the flight. Human waste will also be sterilized by extended exposure to the vacuum of space, and then will be mixed with spent mushroom substrate and composted to produce substrate in which plants may be grown. All vegetable waste will be used to cultivate oyster mushrooms. Mushrooms will break down plant remains and provide nutrition for quail and astronauts. All waste will be composted on board to complete the cycle of nutrients. Proper composting eliminates all pathogens completely. A suite of seeds will be on board to be used as needed at the discretion of the astronauts, such as medicinal herbs and other plants for diversity of food. Some ideas are mint, onions, chives, oregano, basil, cilantro, peppers, tomatoes. Microbes. It is self-evident that humans and all sentient beings require sustenance from the Creator of the universe. That sustenance comes in the form of spiritual as well as physical support. Physically, humans require plants to provide nutrients for energy and health maintenance. Plants and humans also require symbiotic microbes as part of their biological systems. Plant root cells internalize soil microbes into their root cells to extract nutrients, and humans acquire microbes that inhabit the intestinal tract to aid in nutrient extraction from foods, plants, and animals consumed by humans. See rhizophagy cycle, an oxidative process in plants for nutrient extraction from symbiotic microbes. Plants and their microbes are essential components of the space food system that we envision. Plants and human health are dependent on the presence of microbes within their tissues. Experiments have shown that mice, deprived of their gut microbiomes, are extremely susceptible to stress. See stress and the gut-brain axis regulation by the microbiome. The food produced must be living, containing probiotic microbes to maintain human health, mental clarity, and stress tolerance. See New Science on the Human Gut and Health, a clinical conversation with Zach Bush, MD, and Robert Roundtree, MD. Antibiotics will be a last resort and will contaminate the system. Fans will provide air circulation through the rhizosphere. Because of the lack of the circadian rhythm that exists on Earth, the microbes in the soil will need gas exchange. An air circulation system will draw air down through the rhizosphere or soil. This would also help with soil that may tend to drift away due to limited gravity. A refrigerated condenser will be implemented for water recycling because all water will be recycled due to the high water requirements of growing plants. Crop plants require sunlight, water, and living soils. Living soils contain communities of microbes that work to carry nutrients to plants and stimulate plant growth. Microbes from the soil enter the roots, carrying nutrients from the soil to the plant. The microbes even enter aerial parts of the plant. In the rhizophagy cycle, they cycle back into the soil to acquire more nutrients. Space farming. Variants of Three Sisters agriculture will be used to produce crops with maximum nutrients and efficiency. Crickets will be produced as food for birds and humans. Quail will be raised as pets and as a food source for astronauts. I love the little birdie. Oyster mushrooms will be produced as a food source and as a way to further extract nutrients from plant waste. All animal and mushroom waste will be further composted to produce substrate to grow plants.